I met the Aga Khan for the first time in Lisbon in Portugal several years ago with part of his entourage at an event that was held there, which had to do with also bridging this divide between Islam and the West. And I believe in one of the sessions he even gave a speech, a presentation over in Lisbon.
Fantastic. Any personal stories of meeting him and how he came across?
Well, he's a very charming man, very well poised. He was with his wife and with his staff. It was in a party environment in one of the lovely old buildings in Lisbon, in Portugal. He is not prone to speaking much, and basically I greeted him and just shared wishes and hopes to be able to continue working together in the future. My fundamental position is I base my position on the hadith of the Prophet when he was riding with Mu'adh ibn Jabal, and he said, Ya Mu'adh, and he said, Labbaik ya Rasulullah, your service Rasulullah. He said, whoever bears witness that there is no God but Allah, that Muhammad is his messenger, will see paradise. And Mu'adh said, shall I go and tell the people, Ya Rasulullah? And he says, no, because if you do, they will rely on that and do nothing else. So based upon this hadith, which is an authentic hadith, and Mu'adh, before he died, he didn't want to leave this piece of information without conveying it to the ummah, did so. Based upon this hadith, all Muslims have to acknowledge that whoever bears witness to Allah as the one God, has the right beliefs about God, that God is almighty, that God is all-hearing, that God is described by attributes of perfection and not by attributes of weakness, that Allah is not weak, Allah is not sick, Allah is not suffer, Allah is beyond all of those various attributes, and He's only described by attributes of perfection, and that Muhammad is His prophet, will be in paradise. And we are not in a position to judge beyond that. Of course, we know that we are other things, the practices that we do, that we are taught by the Prophet. But on that basis, we have to acknowledge that anyone who recognizes this is part of the ummah, is part of, you might say, the citizen of the nation of Islam, if I can use that kind of language. And within any nation, there are always differences of opinion. I mean, even in the United States, we have, Republicans and Democrats, we have right wing, we have left wing, we have various interpretations on matters of religion, even within the Sunni tradition, within the Shia tradition. But it is important for us to understand and recognize what makes us one ummah, one community, and to not judge those as being outside of the ummah who actually belong within the ummah. From this point of view, I uphold the position that Ismailis are part of the Ummah of Muhammad. And that is, I think, is something that is unequivocally factual based upon this hadith of the Prophet that I had just quoted. In the area of social work, in the area of organizational work, the Ismaili community has a very unique position. The Ismailis are perhaps among the best well-organized, or most well-organized Muslim community in the world. Their network is international and not just within one particular country. They are in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, in Canada, in the United States. And because of that, they are a multinational network. The Aga Khan personally is very highly regarded by political leaders, both in the West and in the Muslim world. And I have often stated in many of my keynote addresses to the Milad, to the Ismaili community, that the Aga Khan network is an underutilized resource in this regard. This is not meant to be a criticism. It is really an expression of hope, an expression of a plea. that says that it can do far more, and by being strategic and by thinking together, I'm convinced that the goodwill that the Aga Khan has, the goodwill that Ismaili communities have established for themselves in Canada, in the United States, in Iran, in many parts of the world, could be utilized and could be leveraged further. The definition of an ummah, the definition of the ummah of Muhammad, is a religious definition of nationhood or peoplehood. It is one which is defined by, it is the analogous thing to what Christians mean when they say that all Christians belong to the body of Christ. It is to be understood as a different thing from saying you are the citizen of the United States or of Britain or of Pakistan or of Egypt. The notion of citizenhood of a nation or being a citizen of a particular city, right, or an inhabitant of a particular town is a different concept from being part of the Ummah of Muhammad. Being part of the Ummah of, some people think that the notion of nationhood, they confuse the notion of nationhood with the idea of a nation statehood. And I think that's a confusion which many Muslims have and labor under, and think that we should create some kind of a one kingdom or one citizenry that is Islamic in nature. That has never happened in history. That concept of a modern nation state and trying to Islamize that will not work when you try to project that into the concept of ummah. The ummah is defined by a people who believe in a particular set of ethics, who believe in a particular creed, who practice in a certain way. That is what defines the ummah. So whoever believes in the oneness of God, who believes in the message of Muhammad and follows the sunnah of Muhammad, or aspires to follow the sunnah of Muhammad, is part of the ummah of Muhammad. And we need to recognize that there's the ummah of believers, which is broader than that. But the Quran itself admits or recognizes the ummah of Sayyidina Isa, of Jesus, the ummah of Sayyidina Musa. So there is the followers, and these different people are all believers. And there are sinners among all of us, and there are people who are even ostensibly followers of the Ummah of Muhammad who may not go to paradise first, etc. So we need to understand the Ummah of believers, the different categorizations of nationhood based upon creed and belief, and how that relates to the Ummah of Muhammad, and how the followers of the Ummah of Muhammad should relate to the followers of other prophets. It's a kind of spiritual nationhood which is separate from, let's say, geographic nationhood.
Yeah. Is the Aga Khan Development Network's work helping to bridge divides within the Muslim world and within the Muslim world, non-Muslim world divide?
I'm aware of many things that the Aga Khan Development Network has done, which has been very, very useful. The focus of the Aga Khan Network on issues of healthcare, building hospitals, and on education, building schools in Kenya and in other countries of Africa, the medical university in Pakistan, is the kind of thing which is very productive, because it's hard to make education and, it is easy to have education and healthcare apolitical. And I recognize the importance of and the value of being apolitical, because then you're not seen as being partisan to any particular kind of political position, which is important if you want to be a bridge figure or perform the role of bridge building. Islam is fundamentally pluralistic. What Islam emphasizes is the oneness of God, but the Quran is quite specific that God created humankind in different colors, different tribes, different ethnicities, as part of the divine plan. And therefore Islam celebrates the pluralism of human societies, of human languages. And from the very beginning, Muslims ruled over majority non-Muslim societies, did not enforce them to become Muslims, and until very recently in our history, until the 20th century, Muslims ruled and protected what were very pluralistic societies, multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multilingual.
What about Islam and democracy?
I mean, if by democracy you mean participation in government, the bay'ah of the people to their political leader, the issues of social justice, the issue of economic parity between people, giving people economic opportunity, giving people health care. I mean, if that's what you mean by democracy, Islam is fundamentally for democracy.
Because there are some criticisms saying that, you know, the concept of democracy is by the people, for the people, and in that theory, you lose out, if you're a Muslim, the submission to Allah.
I disagree with that. The Prophet was very specific in saying, my ummah will not agree on a falsehood. The Prophet is asked to consult with others, but when he, after consulting, he makes up his decision, and in many situations the Prophet was corrected by some of his companions. There are many, like there's a famous story in one of his expeditions, one of the military expeditions, the Prophet decided to stop, to halt, and one of the companions came up to him and says, Messenger of God, are you stopping him because Allah inspired you, or is this your opinion? He says, my judgment. He says, in that case, I would suggest you do the following because of the following strategic reason. The Prophet said, yes, you are right, and he changed his decision. So the notion of taking advice from others, you know, it is the essence of parliamentary democracy. Is the institutional forms by which you get the advice has to be a function of the nature of your society. But as long as you abide by the core principles of the oneness of God, I mean, the whole idea of Islamic rule is to institutionalize the freedom of conscience of the human conscience to choose whatever religion it chooses to worship. The general perception in the West that Islam is a militant faith is a myth that we need to break. The reasons for militancy within the Muslim world, as many writers have written about, both before 9/11 and post 9/11, has to do with a geopolitical history between the West and the Islamic world. And I think this is a passing phase. Some claim its roots or connect its roots all the way back to the Crusades and to a kind of a long collective memory. I do not see it as much that way, and I'm convinced that with the growing numbers of Muslims in the West, in Europe, in the United States, in Canada, young men and women like yourself, that the understanding of Islam will become far more nuanced. And in the work of my initiative, the Cordoba Initiative, we have a particular objective that by the year 2015, we will have reached a tipping point in making people in the West understand that the issues that they're dealing with do not emanate from the theology of Islam any more than the issues in Belfast in Ireland between Catholics and Protestants have to do or emanate from Protestant and Catholic theology. They're about issues of power, issues of parity of power and parity of economic assets or well-being between those different groups. So if the issues of geopolitical power or issues of oil, issues of political interests, economic interests are addressed, then people will begin to see the delinkage of religion from that. And that's the work that we are doing. And I'm convinced that by no later than 2015, 2020, we shall have achieved that objective.